Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what is happening to Tesla stock. An absolutely phenomenal last 2 days. So I'll go over my thoughts moving forward into next week, which could be a bit of a volatile week to say the least. We have, I believe, witching. I think it's triple witching next week. I think we have expiration, and for sure we have a potential rate cut decision. So next week, it's a jam-packed week. It's going to bring in some volatility. The VIX most likely is going to start finding some life again. So let's jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, again, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., right? Again, I always share my thoughts, post updates with my members every single day. A lot of members obviously very happy today with Tesla's move. So again, if you're interested, that link is of course down below where you get all my updates for just $3 USD a month per month. That's it. That's all it is. All my Tesla updates, options flow, technical analysis, etc. And broader market updates when necessary. Of course, $5 a month includes NVDA to that as well if you want NVDA updates as well, again, as the market is open and trading every single day. And then $7 a month gives you access to everything else, right? So pretty much non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks that I see opportunities in, for instance, right? And of course, we also have a Discord for all members, but tier 3 specifically, there's a tier 3 chat room. There's a lot of members talking their day trading, etc. Weekend charts I do over the weekend every Sunday. Again, we'd love to have you there, guys. The link is, of course, down below in the description. But yeah, jumping to Tesla, guys, an absolutely phenomenal day, up almost 7.5%, closing pretty much at $396, just shy of $400 per share. Feels like it was just yesterday we were complaining about Tesla being stuck at 320 and it's already at 400. Pretty unbelievable sometimes, but isn't it? But it shouldn't be a surprise, right? I've been saying many times over, and now I deleted the patterns there, but I've been saying many times over, I will talk about that later, that we're in a bullish pattern. We were in a bullish pattern. Now, obviously, there was a chance that, we break out later, right? We could have easily filled out more of this pattern and then broken out, right? That absolutely was still a possibility. But, we started breaking key levels sooner than, I wouldn't say sooner than expected, but the sooner version, I guess you can say. The move just happens, right? That's kind of what happens when you finally get out of these congestion periods, right? Tesla was coiled up for quite some time, and now we get an explosive move, and I'd be surprised if the move is over. In fact, I actually do think the move will continue, but not necessarily right away. And again, I'll go over my thoughts moving forward. The volume also spiked on this week as well, so a lot of things are pointing good. I mean, the volume, even higher would have been better, but still pretty good. All in all, this move looks like it has legs to it, which is a good sign. And I definitely think Tesla is undeniably in bullish territory. Now, I always look at the both sides of a coin. There are some bearish concerns that I'll go over very soon. But all in all, as of right now, I do believe that Tesla, it's undeniably bullish. I mean, you can't look at this chart and think it's not bullish, right? It's bullish. It is bullish. So what actually happens now, right? Let's go with the daily chart, right? This is the main time frame I use for like 80% of my trades. What is the daily chart suggesting right now, right? What is it telling us? Well, obviously, let's get the elephant out of the room. It's extended. The stock is extended. It's obviously had an absolutely phenomenal last 2 days. It is extended. Now, what I like to do when Tesla gets going like this, especially after we start breaking key levels, we start breaking out of a massive congestion period, et cetera, is, it's always it's good to look at the past behavior of the stock to understand how the stock behaves in such scenarios. For instance, Tesla in this case, rocketing up. It's like, well, what happens now? Okay, maybe you sold, maybe you didn't get enough of a position, maybe you want to add, or maybe you want to start a fresh position. Me personally, I did exit my trading position, keyword trading position, my swing position. The last, I think I entered, it was either Wednesday or Tuesday I entered it. I can't remember which day it was. But nonetheless, yeah, obviously, would have liked to add more to it, but, didn't get that opportunity. It is what it is, but still happy with the profits. Still have my long-term position, of course, that's untouched. But, it's always good to look at past examples. For instance, the 9 exponential moving average, which is this green line, when trends begin like this, becomes, in my opinion, the most important indicator. Why? Because once trends begin, if this trend has legs, if the trend is truly, in this case, bullish, it'll continue going up off of the 9 EMA consistently, essentially. Again, let's take a look at the previous example Tesla had. It's, extremely aggressive move to the upside post-election. I'm sure you all remember this one. I actually missed this one, a little bit of this one. I was very upset about that. Didn't miss this one, though, so that's good. But what did it do, right? It had a nice consolidation, right? Nice little kind of bull flag into the EMAs, and it shot up, right? A beautiful move, very aggressive move. But ultimately, what did it end up doing, right? If you remove all these candles right here, and you just looked at these 4 candles right here where it just gapped up significantly, right? What did it end up doing? Yeah, of course, it gapped up. It took a bit of time to find, the top, if you will, at least the short-term top. But what it ended up doing eventually is the fact that, especially on this candle here, how far away it was from the 9 EMA. The 9 EMA is a very aggressive moving average, right? So if the stock price is already very far away from the 9 EMA, especially a larger cap stock, right? Small caps are usually a bit of an exception because they're just so much more volatile. But especially a large cap, and including Tesla, of course, despite it being pretty volatile for a large cap, these stocks don't tend to move away and stay away, more importantly, stay away from the 9 EMA for too long. So what did it do here? Just to show an example as to what we can see roughly similar to in the days and potentially weeks to come for Tesla stock here now that this move has begun. Eventually found the top, and then of course it essentially kind of bull flagged into the 9 exponential moving average, bounced off of that, came back into the 9 exponential moving average, bounced off of that, and it kind of slowly continued riding it up, right? And again, stocks love doing this. Like Roblox, for instance, is a pretty good stock for the most part, right? Same idea with Roblox. You can see the 921, it just continues riding them up. Every time it comes back into it, it rides it up, it rides it up, it rides it up. Even in NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA is actually a pretty phenomenal example here. Where was it? NVIDIA is probably one of the best examples, actually. Massive stock, pretty much the biggest stock in the market, really. But it's the same idea. Just again, I'm just showing you examples as to what I'm trying to illustrate, because right now, obviously, people may not believe it. They might think like, oh, it's just going to go to 500 tomorrow or Monday. But it's important to understand how these stocks move. Same NVIDIA, right? Massive move up, got pretty distant from the 9 EMA, bull flagged into it, and then it just continued riding up. Look at that. Every single time it touched it, it just kept going and going and going. And then it finally collapsed below it, and we started that downtrend, for instance, right? But same idea on Tesla stock, right? And Tesla does it as well, right? I just showed you a pretty good example of that. It does the exact same thing. So in other words, what does that actually mean moving forward? Eventually, Tesla will find a small little top area. It'll find a hurdle. Now, it's in an area where it could find a hurdle. It's a little bit higher than I expected, right? I thought Tesla, like 380s, maybe barely touching 390 would be kind of where it begins finding some issues. It actually did go a little bit higher than I expected because this area, of course, was a massive area of resistance. So because Tesla closed at the highs of the day, I really wouldn't be surprised if we potentially get a gap up on Monday and fill this gap right around here, right? This gap we left all the way back here on the 31st of January at about 405. It really wouldn't shock me if we get one more kind of quick pump up, really get the FOMO people in, because right now the stock, when a stock is about to go up, it likes to get all the bulls out and the bears scared or excited, I should say. And it likes to do the opposite here as well, right? So in this case, before Tesla does do some kind of consolidation, which it will, you really got to get the FOMO chasers sucked in, right? You really want to suck them in, right? Because they're used as liquidity, essentially. People that don't know what they're doing, they just kind of go in, oh my God, I can't miss this move. I got to go buy now. It's, 395. I have to buy right here, right now. Those people are liquidity, right? So usually what will happen is you'll get a move back up, maybe, get this gap filled, whatever, and then you'll get a reversal, right? And that's the people are stuck now, and they're used as liquidity, right? And the stock will kind of consolidate, do its thing. But ultimately, the main thing I really care about, wherever it happens, doesn't matter if it happens here, higher, lower, whatever. The main thing I'll be looking for moving forward is kind of like what it did here as well, arguably, right? Massive move up, or here, massive move up. And then kind of both flagging into the EMAs, and still had that pop, right? Kind of the same idea where, again, same idea back here. I want to see the stock start to consolidate, some level of consolidation, and I want to see some bullish continuation pattern formed, whether it's a bull flag, wedge, pennant, a rising triangle pattern, right? Kind of like what it did here. Bull flag, pop, and then what did it do? It did a rising triangle pattern and then headed higher, right? Same idea, but I want to see that happen around the 9 EMA. Right now, the 9 EMA is sitting at 358. We're at 395. So we're obviously pretty extended even from the 9 exponential moving average, which is perfectly fine. That obviously happens when you get that initial pop in the move. That's how these things go, it's normal. But what's not normal is to stay this extended for many days, maybe even many weeks. Again, I showed you many examples. What these stocks always like to do, especially larger cap stocks, they're a lot harder to not to do this with compared to like a small cap stock where they're much more volatile and easier to move around, of course. They like to consolidate into the EMA, into the 9 EMA. So again, in other words, I want to see something, just as an example, maybe a bull flag like this, and then the 9 EMA kind of catches up to price, and they meet in the middle here, let's say around 380s, something like that, and then we go higher, right? So just something along the lines of that. I actually don't think we're going to go much lower. I think the worst case right now that Tesla goes down to is a retest of this 365 to 367 range right here, this trend line right here. That to me is honestly like the worst case scenario while still being very bullish. I don't even think that's going to happen unless something catastrophic or some very negative news comes out over the weekend or, whatever the case may be. I'd be surprised if we even get that low. Because Tesla had a very strong close here, because it actually went a little bit higher than I expected, that means the fact that there's a decent chance that this area right here that was clearly a resistance in the past, mid 370s up to about the mid 380s, very good chance that any pullback, if and potentially when it comes down to there, it'll just be a support zone, right? It'll be a support zone. And I would expect, again, if I had to like draw it out to perfection, if I was the architect, I would expect something like this, or maybe like a pennant like this, or maybe we do like a rising triangle pattern like this, right? I don't know what kind of pattern is going to set up, but I want to see a bullish continuation pattern, whichever one it is, with the 9 exponential moving average, price essentially bouncing off of that, and then we make pretty much that next leg higher, which I do think is going to happen because the options flow is still actually very, very bullish, and there's really no reason to be bearish on a stock like this other than the fact that you're waiting for a bit of a consolidation to get obviously a slightly better risk reward type entry. Again, just my opinion, of course, but that's just how things usually move. A good example actually is Google. Google is pretty good, right? It's kind of the same thing on Google. What did it do? It's actually holding really well off here, very powerfully. But nonetheless, even then, when it had these moves, look at this. It just keeps riding that 9 EMA, right? Constantly. A couple of trips to the 21. But for the most part, almost all these candles, what are they doing? Just riding that 9 exponential moving average, right? And then here it is kind of defying logic a little bit, right? Google's been very strong, I have to admit. So sometimes you'll get these kind of rare instances where it does defy logic a bit, which I guess can happen with Tesla, of course, but more often than not, usually that's kind of what happens that I just mentioned, where you let at least the 9 EMA catch up to price, some bullish pattern sets up, and then you continue higher. Something like that, give or take, of course. But again, usually when stocks like this happen and we get these moves, you expect some kind of level of fuckery to happen, some ways to trap people, if essentially in this case, trap late buyers, late chasers, use them as liquidity, and then we'll get that consolidation into that potential next move up. But all in all, that's kind of how I'm looking at Tesla stock, right? Again, very, very bullish, very, very, it looks very good. There's no other way to put it. It looks very bullish. The very final thing I do want to bring up is going to be this. So people that follow the channel, and especially members that are sub to me, know that the 4-hour SMI on Tesla has been pretty damn good, to say the least. Pretty damn good. The 4-hour SMI now, you can see at the bottom, is at pretty much those extremely elevated territories, right? Whenever the 4-hour SMI gets above to these levels, the stock has pretty much every single time, at the very least, cooled off, not necessarily like a complete crash or anything like that, but at the very least, a cool off. Let's take a look at the previous example, right? This was a very aggressive short squeeze. What happened here? Same idea. We had that bull flag. This is the one I mentioned. And then remember, we had the consolidation into that bull flag here. Now they're shot up, and then we started that rising triangle pattern and it headed higher. Remember that? That's the one I just showed on the daily. SMI. What did the SMI do in that exact same scenario where it seemed like the stock will never stop going up? It finally got up into the exact same level it's going to be now, or it is now. And then once it starts curling, which we're not there yet, that's the next step. We need to start seeing some curling, if you will. That's when the stock, in this case Tesla, began the consolidation, a bullish consolidation, but a consolidation nonetheless. And then it continued essentially a bullish pattern, continuation pattern higher, right? But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that even on this very aggressive push up, which was, let's say, from the bottom, from where roughly it started to the top of it, was about a 40% move. What are we at right now? Right, let's say you bought it from here, right around here, give or take, and then you bought it here. This is only a 13. This is not even remotely close to that move. That was a substantial move, right? This is like child's play compared to that, but the idea and the logic behind it is similar, right? Just worth mentioning. But even on a move this aggressive, it's still the SMI, once it topped out and started curling and crossing, still caused this scenario to cool off, at least short term, right, for about a week or so. And then, of course, we went higher. So the point I'm just trying to make is the fact that the SMI is in the exact same, almost exact same position. It's in that exact same position in terms of elevation, but it's just not done curling yet. You can see it's still pointing straight up. Once it starts to curl and kind of go sideways, that's usually when you can start expecting such a thing to occur. But until that starts happening, we could still get that one more pop-up, like I said, so about 405 for that gap fill. Wouldn't surprise me on Monday, to be completely honest with you. But we are entering a very potential volatile week with the VIX potentially looking to, start getting a push up off of levels that it's pushed up several times over. You can see anytime it's come down to here, it's gotten some jumps, and we could potentially get a jump into next week as we enter, triple witching. I think VIX expiration. We have FOMC or the Fed rate decision. Volatility next week, wouldn't be surprised, which could be the perfect excuse for Tesla to get that level of consolidation, freak some people out, think it's about to crash, just for it to actually be nothing more than a bullish continuation pattern. Anyways, hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to jumble too much. I'm just really trying to explain my thought process so people understand what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. Actually, there's one final thing I did want to mention. I completely forgot about this. And this is the other side of the coin. Like I mentioned, I always like looking at the other side of the coin. I want to make this very quick so the video isn't 20 hours long. But essentially, there is a bear case worth mentioning. I don't think this is going to happen. The only way this would start concerning me is if we essentially lose the 350s. If we come back to 350 and start losing 350, then I would get very concerned. This would actually be a concern to me. As of right now, it's not a concern. It's more of like, hey, it's worth mentioning kind of thing, right? And that is, of course, the weekly, this potentially being an extremely large dead cat, essentially still offsetting this unbelievably aggressive sell-off that Tesla had not that long ago, right? That's kind of what this is potentially offsetting. So let's continue monitoring this. But essentially, we're just past the 618 Fibonacci, which to me tells me the fact that, there's a good chance we do come to the green Fibonacci's, which is 430 to 440. I actually expect it to come up to that range. But again, a bit of a cool off here. And then I think we'll get that final pop to 430 to 440. But, and I know this, people might think there's no way this is a dead cat. But in terms of a bearish thesis, if you will, it's not an impossible thing to think of, because this could still be just one very large kind of bear-y looking flag, if you will, that looks something like this, and is just nothing more than a very, very, very large dead cat going into maybe next year, for instance, right? And then from there, maybe things go southwards across the board, for instance, maybe even the market. I don't know. I'm not trying to fear monger here, but I am trying to just bring out this potential bear case scenario. Again, I don't really care about this too much until either we lose 350s or maybe even lose this trend line, for instance, right? You can kind of go like this right here, this trend line right here. If this trend line ever gets lost, that could be a concern, right? That absolutely could be a concern. But yeah, worth mentioning. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Option slow, obviously ridiculously bullish, no question about it. Again, I still think the stock is bullish. Even if this is a dead cat, I still think we'll see 430 to 440. That's when we start getting, potentially, very interesting, okay, well, what happens next, right? But yeah, anyways, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.